Good evening, and thank you so much for gathering tonight. This means so much to me to be able to celebrate our feast day of St. Peter Claver. Your presence as Knights and Ladies of St. Peter Claver is such a blessing to our church, and the opportunity for us to be together to pray is fantastic. It means so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I look and see over time different moments, transformational moments in my own life, my ongoing education. One of those was soon after I arrived in Columbus back in 2019. It was just around the time of my arrival when that documentary movie, Emmanuel, was released about the terrible mass shooting in the church in Charleston, South Carolina. And while we didn't catch it in the theaters soon after, we were able to have a screening of the film for the staff of the people I work with, the people I collaborated with in the diocesan offices. It's certainly a painful film to see, and certainly brought back very painful memories. After the movie, we had a bit of a discussion, and I remember some of the members of the staff, particularly some from the African American community, spoke about their pain in watching and recalling the events of that day. First of all, parents spoke about their ongoing worry for their children. After that, they spoke a little bit about some of the silence that they experienced in their own parish churches and the effect that had on them. The deepening of the pain because it wasn't addressed. And then, and this is where it becomes kind of transformational to me. I abhor racism in every fashion. And I think I'm on the right road, but they pointed out different details that I just didn't see. Just little things that really were far meaning. One, just to give an example, I remember they spoke about when the fellow who did the shooting was apprehended. He was pulling into his driveway, and the police approached the car, and they just approached it as if it were a traffic stop. And I mean, this is a guy who shot up, a church community. He's a pretty dangerous guy, but what was going or not going through their minds? What judgments were they making based on his appearance? So that followed by some of, we had in the listening sessions too, just around that time that I arrived, just helped me to realize, oh man, I just miss a lot of the details, a lot of the important things. And seeing things, seeing reality through somebody else's eyes is a bit of an awakening. Maybe sometimes a rude awakening, but it's an awakening, all right. And that gets to the heart of the Catholic view. Because what is Catholic, what we are meant to be, is always to look deeply, to see deep into reality. So much of the world stays at the level of the surface. judges things as they appear to be. And yet, when you look deeply, you see so much more, that there's a much greater truth beneath the surface. And when we can begin to listen deeply, when we begin to listen deeply to one another, we then see the world through one another's eyes. And then we get closer to the truth. The truth is the truth. It's not my truth, your truth, this truth, that truth. The truth is the truth. But the thing is, we need to be able to see reality through one another's eyes and look very, very deeply to get to the truth, to keep it from being just my perspective. Speaking of eyes, it brings us to the whole basis of Catholic social teaching, of Catholic pro-life teaching, and that is that when we look into the eyes of one another, we see every person, the dignity of the human person, every person created in the image and likeness of God. And that human dignity is the basis for everything we believe, we profess, and we teach. You take any moral issue, and it comes down to human dignity. Can I look into the eyes of any brother or sister of mine and see the image and likeness of God? Can I see Christ? I'm so glad some of the missionaries of charity are with us. Earlier this week, we celebrated Mother Teresa, the feast and the 25th anniversary of her death. And I'm reminded of her words in hearing today's very gospel. When I encountered Mother Teresa, she was speaking and she said, I was in the back, way back of a large church, so it wasn't special, but I remember her holding her hand up. And she said, here's an examination of conscience. Every day, she said, look at your hand, look at the 5 fingers on your hand. And then remember this gospel. Look at the 5 fingers and see the words, you did it for me. And then ask, what did I do for Jesus today? You did it for me. What did I not do for Jesus today? Oh boy, that's a tough question. Well, what did I do that I'm not so proud of what I did or said or thought to Jesus today? You did it for me. To me. Yes, the eyes are the gateway to see that human dignity of every person, to see the presence of Christ in everyone around us. And isn't that what set Peter Claver apart in his own time? At a time of tremendous shame during that slave trade, when people, Christians, were treating fellow human beings like commodities, not like people. It wasn't just acts of kindness that he performed, but he saw human people. He saw dignity. He saw truth. He could look into the eyes of those suffering before him, mistreated. And what did he do? He looked into their eyes and he saw Jesus. And that gets to what the prophet Isaiah was talking about. Here's the fasting I wish. Release those bound unjustly, untying the thongs of the yoke, setting free the oppressed, breaking every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry, sheltering the oppressed and the homeless, clothing the naked when you see them, and not turning your back on your own. What is God asking us? But to see that human dignity in one another. And so indeed, racism, violence, these are pro-life issues. It gets to the heart of human dignity. And the third image of the eyes. My eyes, learning to see through the eyes of other people. Seeing the dignity of every person through their eyes. And now I ask the question, what would those cared for by Peter Claver, what did they see in his eyes? But they saw Jesus Christ as well. Even without the benefit of the gospel, they experienced the fullness of the gospel through his actions, through his care, through his practical care. What did Peter Claver do? But just by bringing fruits and different kind of food, providing, taking a cloak to make a sheet, giving human dignity. Some got a glimpse of Jesus in the midst of a crowd of people who were treating them inhumanely. So tonight, as we celebrate St. Peter Claver, tonight as we gather in this church, we too ask the Lord to adjust our eyes, to help us always to see through the eyes of one another. We ask the Lord to awaken within us that sense of the human dignity of every single person around us. And we ask the Lord, please God, might others see you in me. When they look at me, may they experience something of your love and help me where I fall short so that I can be more effective as a witness, as a sign of your love and compassion.